Hey folks, Mr. Daldis here. Just wanted to take a minute to talk to you about the Chapter 10, Section 5, the last section in our Unit 2 study of the Muslim world. This section is called the Ottoman and Safavid Empires. Your objectives for today are to take a look at how the Ottoman Empire expanded, what were the characteristics of the Ottoman culture, and then how did Abbas the Great strengthen the Safavid Empire. So while the Mughal rules in India, the Ottomans and the Safavids dominated the Middle East and parts of Eastern Europe. What was part of the success of these empires expanding, obviously, is their access to military technology. The biggest of these technologies were cannons and muskets, which made firing on an enemy a lot faster and a lot more accurate. Because of the growth over these 200 years during this time and in this part of the world, these empires, the Ottomans, the Safavids, and the Mughals, they're going to be known as the age of the gunpowder empires. One of the main reasons they were able to expand so quickly and have access to the gunpowder is actually the connection on the Silk Road, which connected East Asia to the rest of the empire. So here's a map of these empires and growing. The Safavid here in the red line shows the extent with Shah Abbas the Great, who we will mention a little later. Suleiman, who we drew the Tugra of the other day, that will be the light purple here. As you can see, that empire expanded quite a range, covering much of the Arabian Peninsula into Asia Minor, Greece, and parts of Europe, all the way to Vienna. They also conquered part of northern Africa here in modern-day Algeria, right here near Tripoli, Egypt, and Cairo as well. So a pretty expansive empire when you think this was all within the stretch of 200 years. Let's talk about the greatest leader, Suleiman. Definitely Suleiman the Magnificent. You guys looked and we searched his Tugra. You guys created your own Tugra based on his signature, but he was Sultan during the golden age of the Ottoman Empire. His name given to him by the people of the Ottoman Empire was Lawgiver. It was actually the rest of Europe that called him Suleiman the Magnificent. He was a brilliant guy, brilliant general, modernized the army, made them very strong moving forward. He's going to use this brilliance of his and his modernized army to make ways into Europe. As I said, he's going to move into almost Vienna, which is just south of Germany in modern day Europe. Vienna is the capital of Austria, just south of Germany. He also, after he expands his empire, he's going to give himself a new title. He's going to call himself the protector of the sacred places. Those sacred places, can you think of them? There's two of them in Islam that are very important to the religion. That's right. If you guessed Medina and Mecca, you would be correct. So he added this to his title of Emperor and Protector of the Sacred Places. So just to show real quick where we're talking about, I'm talking about up here is Vienna. So he is going to go from his capital and he's going to march and expand with diplomacy and warfare almost all the way to Vienna. He is going to fail at invading Vienna, but to make it that far is pretty impressive. This is what Suleiman looked like. This is him seated in the throne here, this nice chair. That is Suleiman the Magnificent right there. You will also notice in this picture the flower patterns and different ornate decorations that you guys saw when we looked at the Tugra that was created by Suleiman. Also, you'll notice he is surrounded by his viziers and advisors. And notice it's not just him. So this implies, folks, that as a leader, he is going to be surrounded by people who are going to give him advice, and he's going to make the best possible decision. So Ottoman culture, there's a few parts here that we're going to talk about. The first is government. What you need to understand is that Suleiman had absolute power as the the leader, the monarch, if you will, the emperor. Nobody questioned his decisions. He is 100% in charge of that government. Ottoman law, as we discussed before, is based on the Sharia, which is a set of laws that promoted within Islam, and they are the final say on everything. And as we said before, these laws are part of government as well. The Ottomans recruited government and military offers from conquered people. Remember, we talked about this, future dictators of the world. If you want to find success in your leadership and see your leadership stay on for generations, you're going to want to involve the people that you conquer. The more people you can involve from those conquered areas, the better chance you are going to have at long-term success with government and ruling over those people. The second part is society. We'll do a little deeper dive into society in a minute. Remember, society is broken down into 4 classes. You would have men of the pen and men of the sword at the top. You would have a couple more classes at the bottom that we will talk about in a minute. Non-Muslims were organized into millets, which are religious communities based on their beliefs. So it could be Christian or Jewish, but that's what we're talking about with society. The arts, we'll talk about those momentarily as well. A little bit deeper dive here into society. We talked about the 4 classes. The 4 social classes are here. So the very top are going to be your men of the sword, and their job is to guard the sultan and the state. That is why they are called the men of the sword. You have men of the pen. That's going to be your scientists, your lawyers, your judges, your poets, your educated types. Those are going to be your men of the pen. The bottom part of society, you're going to see men of negotiation. That's going to be your merchants, tax collectors, artisans. And then lastly, the men of husbandry. That's going to be the farmers, herders, and folks that produce the food. So society broken down into 4 different categories based on what job you had. The arts, we talked about poetry is one of those arts that was highly prized in Ottoman culture. The ability to have the spoken word it's very important. Painters are going to produce miniatures, illuminated manuscripts, so you're going to see some of those European influences really start to creep into Ottoman culture here as they move further and further into connection with Europe. And of course, architects are going to design magnificent mosques and palaces. The most noteworthy would be Sinan. You can go ahead and do a Google search and find out what exactly Sinan designed, but there are some beautiful palaces and mosques that are going to be the definition of Ottoman culture moving forward. We can't move on from this part without talking about the Janizaries. They would be a part of that men of the sword, so the very cream of the crop. What's interesting about the Janizaries is that they were, at one point in time, children of Christian families living in the Balkan mountain ranges. The Ottomans, their tax, instead of collecting money from the Christian families, they collected their young sons and put them into government service. These boys at a young age were converted to Islam. They were put through ridiculous training at palace schools for their military. The best soldiers of these groups would go on to become the Janizaries, which was essentially the Navy SEALs of then. So similar to our Navy SEALs, Green Berets, Force Recon, all those guys, is the top, the cream of the crop, the top of the very, very top. They were the best and brightest students typically. When they would go through this training, they would get educated, as is the case with all Muslims. They learn how to read and write, but they would take it farther with them. If you were really, really good, showed a lot of poise and potential, they would give you a government job, which was very nice. They became the judges, the poets, the grand viziers, or the men of the pen, as we talked about. So if you get into this group, you are immediately at the top of society. Non-Muslim girls, they typically stayed on as slaves. They might be accepted as a member of the family, but a lot of them were freed after their death of the masters. So women, again, working towards equality, not quite there yet, but that is what women were up to during this time. This right here is a picture of a young Ottoman soldier on horseback. As you can see, bow and arrow in hand, making him incredibly mobile. This is something that goes back, ties into the Mongols as well. A A lot of these emperors have ties to Genghis Khan and the Mongol empires of prior to this. We jump forward now to the Safavid Empire. And of all the Safavid leaders, rulers, kings, also known as Shahs, Abbas the Great was the one who really brought forth the Safavid Empire. During his reign, he centralized government, created a powerful military force, strengthened the economy. He tolerated non-Muslims and valued their economic contributions, especially the Jews. They brought with them a banking system that was very beneficial to the Safavid Empire. He used a mixture of force and diplomacy against the Ottomans. He knew the Ottomans were very strong, so he did not want to mess with that. So he would use a little show of force and some diplomacy just to let the Ottomans know that he was there. He's also going to forge some alliances with some European states. The enemy of my enemy is my friend type situation. And he's going to move his capital to Isfahan. So, and then lastly, he really wanted to bring back the old Persian culture. If you guys have seen the movie 300 with Xerxes and the massive armies and craziness, that is the Persian culture. He wanted to bring that back. So this right here, what you're looking at in the upper right-hand corner is an example of one of the thrones. That's what the Sultan would have sat on, something like Suleiman. You kind of saw it in his picture of his. Also, this is the Hagia Sophia. This is a beautiful palace/mosque located near Constantinople, just south of Constantinople here on the Arabian Peninsula. A couple of different key characteristics of the Ottoman and Safavid empires listed here. You do need to know that the Ottomans were Sunni Muslims. So again, the Ottomans here, they were Sunni Muslims, whereas the Safavids were more Shiite Muslims. Quick little follow-up question here. Analyze this map for a moment. It is of the Ottoman and Safavid empires. What city is at the center of the Ottoman Empire in 1453? What city was at the center of the Ottoman Empire in 1453? So if we're analyzing this map right here, green is the Ottoman Empire based on what the key tells us. So what city was at the center of the Ottoman Empire? Take a moment to guess that. Press pause if you need to. Number 2, what important cities did Suleiman bring under his control? What important cities did Suleiman bring under his control? If I'm looking at, again, the map, I start with the key. I see lands under Suleiman, so it's going to be this light purple. Are there 2 major cities? Looks like Baghdad's there. You could say Mecca and Medina, Cairo, Tripoli. All of these are options. So if I had to guess, well, if you had to guess, I don't have to guess. But if you had to guess, what would they be? What are the 2 main cities? Let's take a look and see if you were right. Istanbul, obviously, right here in the middle of the Ottoman Empire. The second one, a little more difficult to locate, but it's going to be Baghdad and Tripoli. Those are the 2 cities that were added under his control during that time. It would not have been Mecca or Medina, as those already belonged to the Islamic empires, as it were, and out of respect, they would not have tried to conquer those areas. Quick follow-up question: which of the following lands became part of the Ottoman Empire? Persia, Austria, Italy, or Asia Minor? Feel free to go back to that map if you need to. Which of the following describes a policy or achievement of Abbas the Great? Let's see if you guys get these correct. Asia Minor is correct. And then lastly, he valued the economic contributions of non-Muslims. Folks, that's all I've got for you. That is the end of Unit 2. Be prepared for your test, as it is going to come up next week. If you have any questions, as always, email me or talk to me in class. Thanks, guys. Thanks for watching. Have a great day.